Hello everyone, welcome to A Clear Perspective. I'm Serene. Last time I talked about the American Innovation and Competition Act of 2021 passed by the U.S. Senate and discussed its impact on U.S. China relations. Today, let's talk about another bill. It is not a U.S. bill, but a special one passed by the Chinese Communist Party's National People's Congress and promptly signed into law by Xi Jinping on the same day. Judging by Xi's urgency, we can see how much he values this bill. The CCP's anti-foreign sanctions law. The bill has only 16 articles and less than 1,300 words. It is tiny compared to the 1,400-page American Innovation and Competition Act. But it has a significant impact, because this bill is likely to accomplish what Trump wanted but failed to do while in office. Decouple American businesses or even Western businesses as a whole from the Chinese Communist Party. In other words, this bill is perhaps the biggest step Xi has taken as the accelerator-in-chief for the collapse of the CCP. Let's take a look at the main points of this bill. On June 10th, the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, the CCP's top legislature, concluded with the passage of the anti-foreign sanctions law. Xi signed it into law on the same day and it took effect immediately. The full text of the anti-foreign sanctions law was released on the evening of June 10th. As the name implies, it is a law on how to retaliate against the sanctions suffered by the Chinese Communist regime. First, who is the target of retaliation? Under its terms, relevant departments of the CCP's State Council may punish any organization or individual, including their immediate family members, who directly or indirectly participate in the formulation and the implementation of sanctions against the CCP. And according to Article 11, organizations and individuals within our country shall implement the countermeasure taken by the relevant departments of the State Council. This is tantamount to requiring the relevant foreign businesses in China to also cooperate with the Chinese Communist regime. CCP's anti-foreign sanctions law, Article 12 says, no organization or individual shall implement or assist in the implementation of discriminatory restrictive measures taken by foreign countries against Chinese citizens and organizations. This is tantamount to saying that even Chinese companies overseas must follow the instructions of the CCP. Therefore, we can see that this strike is really very broad, especially for foreign financial enterprises in China. They will basically be in the eye of the storm, since most of the U.S. sanctions against the CCP are focused on the financial sector. Next, what are the specific measures included in the CCP's retaliation? It covers visa restrictions, deportation, freezing of assets, and a ban on conducting transactions with all entities or individuals in China. These measures release one message, that is, as long as you cooperate with the sanctions against the CCP, you should not want to do business in China. All the money you earned before is for nothing, and any property will be frozen and confiscated by the CCP. In other words, the CCP's anti-foreign sanctions law is not only defensive to prevent the sanctions, but also have offensive provisions to retaliate. So, what will be the effect of this law? Many companies will have to make a choice to comply with the U.S. sanctions and risk facing economic consequences, deportation or jail time, or comply with the CCP and even actively retaliate against the U.S. sanctions. If the companies choose to cooperate with the CCP, I would assume that they would be subject to additional sanctions. So both options have their downsides, and each company will have to evaluate which option is worse. Because of this, it is likely that many companies will avoid this dilemma altogether by moving out of China. For example, according to the U.S. sanctions, TSMC will not be able to supply chips to Huawei anymore, but can continue to supply other Chinese cell phone businesses such as Xiaomi. However, according to the new law, TSMC will be the CCP's target of retaliation. Its business in China will probably be frozen. All Chinese businesses cannot do business with TSMC, so as a consequence, even Xiaomi, one of the largest cell phone manufacturers in China, cannot get chips from TSMC. Another example is that according to the U.S. sanction order, HSBC cannot provide financial services to all NPC Standing Committee members who participated in the formulation of Hong Kong's national security law, as well as officials such as Chief Executive of Hong Kong, Carrie Lam. Now, the Chinese Communist Party threatens that it can punish people and companies enforcing the sanctions against them. The assets of the people can be frozen, the company executives can be prosecuted and sent to jail, and all Chinese companies will be afraid to do business with them. But on the other hand, if HSBC refuses to implement the U.S. sanction orders, it may face additional sanctions by the United States and may even be kicked out of the U.S. financial system. Such a blow would be deadly. So, from HSBC's point of view, the only escape route may be to leave China. Moreover, the financial sanctions cover both foreign and Chinese banks. So, once the CCP really starts to retaliate, it can only lead to one result: forcing foreign banks to withdraw from China and forcing Chinese banks to withdraw from the US dollar system. What does this imply? It is a decoupling, a more complete decoupling than any previous trade war or technology war. The decoupling will cost foreign companies the Chinese market, but it will deliver a much heavier blow to the CCP. So Xi's move will eventually hurt himself far more than others. His intention was to use a lose-lose approach to coerce foreign companies to pressure their own governments so that foreign governments will not dare to sanction the CCP. In other words, Xi is making a big bet that foreign governments won't dare to give up to the Chinese market. But will the CCP really deter the US and the EU from imposing sanctions with this tactic? Personally, I think it will prove to be ineffective. When Trump was in office, one of the major goals of his administration was to bring important industrial chains out of China. After Biden took office, even though he overturned most of Trump's domestic achievements, Trump's regulations on trade still continued the process of moving American industry away from dependence on China. One reason for this gambit could be that Xi wants to prevent future sanctions. As we know, public opinion has really flipped on the possibility of the coronavirus have originated from a lab, and the politicians are really pushing investigation and accountability. Even the European Union, when visited by President Biden, expressed support for a new investigation on the source of the virus. The G7 summit leaders will probably call upon the World Health Organization to conduct a new transparent investigation on the source of the virus. So Xi has more to deal with than just Huawei, Xinjiang, and Hong Kong. Once the 90-day investigation period expires, if the conclusion favors the lab leak theory, Xi will have to face a new wave of sanctions from countries other than just the United States. From this perspective, it may be fear that drove Xi to sign the anti-foreign sanction law. Xi wants to pass this law immediately as a way to prevent even more sanctions. Many of us might not know the current situation regarding the CCP. On Thursday, the President of the United States and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom reaffirmed their commitment to work together and signed a revitalized document, the New Atlantic Charter. On the document, they pledged to resolve to defend the principles, values, and the institutions of democracy and open societies. The original Atlantic Charter was first released to the public by President FDR and the British Prime Minister Churchill in 1941. By revitalizing the Atlantic Charter, it symbolizes that the CCP is now the target, like Nazis in 1941. This has similar political implications as the U.S. Army C-17 Globemaster transport plane chose D-Day to land on Taiwan. Furthermore, the name, the New Atlantic Charter, also implies that the future world order will still be led by the principles of the West, and that there will be no room for a totalitarian and violent system like the CCP. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. We hope to see you next time.